couple things come to mind. Number one, I've been blessed with an amazing wife who is a great planner. And so many times you'll see it where, whether it's in a marriage, a ministry, a business, you'll have certain gifts and you have maybe a gift of faith or a gift to believe, like, let's go reach this many people or let's produce this. And so you have a gift of that, but then God, by his grace, brings supportive roles around you that are gifted in, okay, that's where you want to go, and that's good as a visionary. But now you have implementers, like you and Denise and so many other amazing people around me to go, okay, that's where you want to go. This is how we need to get there.
My name's Mike O'Connell, and I'm with my good friend Todd Doxzon, and we're excited to welcome you back to Love Leadership, man.
It's been a minute.
Been a minute. We took a break, and we're back. Excited to have this conversation. I think it's going to be a really timely one. How you feeling today?
I feel great, Mike. I mean, we just had the pastoral breakfast, got to pray for one another here. We actually went back to some childhood memories. Isn't it interesting? Like, we've been together this long, and to hear some of their stories has been good. And just to learn what challenges they have in this season. What are they celebrating? And one of my favorite things that we do each month is getting the pastors together, learning together. It's been great.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about those meetings is, we're sitting around with a group of guys, and most of the time you're listening to other people share what's going on in their life. And I point that out because we just want to say, man, we're thankful to have every single listener that's tuning into this conversation. Mm-hmm. We're great friends, and we certainly haven't figured this thing called leadership out, but we're definitely on the journey together. And yep. I think today we're going to have a great conversation about this idea of moving from New Year's resolutions to New Year rhythms.
Right.
And so maybe you can just set this conversation up with why this idea, means so much to you.
It's big, Mike, and we've said this phrase a million times: little disciplines lead to big victories. And I think there's a lot of us, we want these big victories, but for whatever reason, we've never had the grace to implement the little disciplines that over time lead to the big victories. And I've seen it. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it time and time again in other people's lives where, we have so much pain, we have so much regret, we have so much of these things that we're missing out on. And what is really the core problem? It's, for whatever reason, we've never just started small and then been consistent day after day, week after week, month after month. And I've seen it in my own life, Mike, and there's some areas that, I've wanted to grow. I've had these big, huge goals, and for whatever reason, man, I lack the discipline in a certain area. Then there's other areas, man, that I'm like, how did I get here?
Wow.
And it was God's grace that he's developed these little disciplines in my life. And I would say that. The other thing that came to mind, Mike, when we were kind of just praying about this topic was, for years in pro football and college football, and you can relate to this, we didn't really even have to set, what's the next 4 months going to look like? We didn't. So it was almost like I was neglected to be forced to understand how to plan better. And so my planning really was terrible for years because I didn't have to. In fact, the whole year, it was like, okay, you show up at this time, you just worry about showing up and bringing your best effort and your best attitude. I didn't have to worry about what time we're getting on the plane, how do you schedule the plane, all those little, what I'm saying? Those logistical details of planning a whole year. I'd never had to worry about that. And then all of a sudden you become a lead pastor, or you become a dad, you become a business owner, you become a mom, and now you have to plan, and you have to go, okay, if I want to get there, how do I reverse engineer and get back to, how does it start small? And then how do I have the grace to show up every day at this time, and to go to the gym, or to be on my face before God, and to be in the Word of God? What does that look like? And so, in any event, just to set it up, Mike, I think a lot of us struggle with the big planning and hitting, saying, okay, I want to do this, this, and this. Even planning, but then coming back to the small things. What does that look like in my iCal, or whatever calendar you look like, that you plan? What does that look like?
For sure. And I think when I think about your life as we've walked close together, I think one of my favorite attributes about who you are is your consistency. I really value that in you, and I look up to you in that way.
Same back
I think
at ya.
for you, the question that I would ask though is, when we talk about, this time of year, everybody's getting gung ho about the new improvement, the new resolution. I want to lose this much weight and I want to accomplish this sort of thing. And it's true. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with vision, with goals. There's nothing wrong with outcome-based goals.
Love it.
But if you don't have the proper inputs or rhythms, obviously it's sayonara. Those things probably aren't going to come to fruition. Do you remember a time in your life, because you're talking about, it's true, our football training, we didn't have to think about these things. Was there a moment or a shift in your life or a book that you read or a conversation that you had where you saw this shift of like, maybe I should think about this a little differently? Maybe it's not New Year's resolutions. Maybe I need to think about my rhythms.
A couple of things come to mind. Number one, I've been blessed with an amazing wife who is a great planner. And so many times you'll see it where, whether it's in a marriage, a ministry, a business, you'll have certain gifts and you have maybe a gift of faith or a gift to believe, like, let's go reach this many people or let's produce this. And so you have a gift of that, but then God, by his grace, brings supportive roles around you that are gifted in, okay, that's where you want to go, and that's good as a visionary. But now you have implementers, like you and Denise and so many other amazing people around me that go, okay, that's where you want to go. This is how we need to get there. So I would say I've been surrounded by so many amazing people throughout the years that have helped force me to grow. And honestly, it's been a blessing to learn from them. I would say that. The other thing, Mike, is the reading the book Traction and implementing that into the culture of our church. Denise and I have implemented into our family where we literally have daily metrics and weekly metrics and monthly, yearly metrics that we have in a software. I know that sounds a little bit overboard, but that's the practicality of it. We write a 10-year vision and then now you reverse engineer. Well, if that's part of what you want to accomplish, what is the daily, weekly, and monthly non-negotiables that will set you up for success for the long haul? And then we have a weekly meeting where we literally will sit just like this and we have our data points and, all right, babe, like this area of our life and in our marriage, did we have a date this week? How many times were we intimate this week? How many times did you pursue me? How many times did I pursue you? And, that might sound like overkill, but to me, it's like, show me your little disciplines, show me what you have there, and I'm going to show you what's going to end up in the future.
It's so good, man. It reminds me of we talk about this often, but the quote from James Clear, he says, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And you could
such a beautiful phrase.
You could actually replace the word systems with rhythms, honestly.
Yeah.
I think this time of year, again, so many folks are they're focused on outputs or outcomes, and what you're really talking about right now is inputs. It's the little disciplines over time, and maybe even just help our listeners. I think, there's a lot of people that are either engaged here at Love Church. I'm sure there's going to be other people that serve in the global church. Maybe talk about the shift that we experience as an organization. You already alluded to it with the system EOS, but how has that rhythm really changed our culture, our leadership culture, and our effectiveness as a church over the last handful of years?
It's a great question. We've learned so much reading Traction, implementing the EOS system, our software 90, where you put your goals and your rhythms into this software. So the eye in the sky doesn't lie. I mean, you look at that. I think it's been a complete shift. I thank God for VU Church, Mike, and we've learned so much from them when it comes to a seasonal model.
Yes.
That's helped us too, and what is that? Well, we have 3 seasons each year, right? We're in season 1 right now, currently January 2023, right? So January, February, March, April is season 1. And I love it because those first 3 months, we have these certain rhythms that we've prayed about, we've put in our system. This is how we're going to roll. And then that fourth month is evaluation. And we ask the Lord, we pray about it. Hey, what is working? What's not working? What are you inviting us to change? What are you inviting us to stop? What do you want us to start? And I think, man, that is just healthy, because I think sometimes, Mike, if I'm honest, sometimes I stop planning big picture because I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to feel 4 months, 5 months down the road. So then I stop. I don't even put the effort in to do the yearly calendar. Well, what is that going to do? Well, to your point, that's the level of your system. You're going to be copacetic the whole time. But I love the ability to set that and then evaluate after 3 months and go, what's working, what's not, And we do that from our family perspective as well. We look at, we just had the evaluation month in December, and Denise and I evaluated the year. We evaluated season 3, 2022. What's working, what's not? What were goals or rhythms that we set to attain that they just practically weren't going to work this season? And we had to shift. We had to shift some things. We have a couple different ideas as far as pursuing one another. One of the things in marriages, I don't know why, I'm going to just share this real quick, but in marriages, whether it's physical intimacy, whether it's emotional intimacy, whether it's spiritual intimacy, sometimes we get a little confused because we're like, well, who's supposed to pursue who? Who's supposed to initiate? Well, the man needs this, well, what about the woman? Sometimes and so we literally have on our scorecard, how many times, we have a goal, how many times I'm initiating, how many times she's initiating. Even just that, man, it sounds so dumb, but it's so helpful for us, because what is the goal? The goal for us is intimacy. It's oneness. We want to maximize our marriage. We want to be a blessing to so many people, but we also want to enjoy the ride, man. We don't want to, oh man, we have to endure one another in marriage. We want to vibe, dude. We want to flow. Well, for that to happen, what has been off a little bit? Okay, this is an area. So how do we fix it? Let's put some practical rhythms, to your point, into our life system that we can adapt and grow, and we can look at it at our weekly meeting. How'd that look? Well, I was 0 for 2. Well, step it up, bro.
Let's go. Saying? Yeah. For sure. I think I want to make sure that our listeners catch this, because I really believe that this could be life altering, a monumental catalytic sort of moment, because you just use the language life system. I think this is crucial now. Catch this, listeners, I think we've even had a lot of conversation about this. I think the beauty with this EOS system, and that's the system that's worked for us, but sure, it doesn't need to be that system. Right. But there's got to be some sort of rhythm system that you implement. And for us, it started in the organization, and then we aligned our personal lives off of that same sort of rhythm that was built. Right. And I say this often to leaders: don't sacrifice what's most important on the altar of your ambition. I think what can happen is we create these wonderful systems on the organizational side. So we've been super clear about our mission, our vision, our values, our rhythms. But then on the personal side, we've struggled to implement that. I think the beauty in what you just pointed out is you've really started implementing in both areas, and then you've created alignment around those systems so that you can thrive in life. And I think there's just something really beautiful about what you just constructed right there. And I just wanted to make sure our listeners caught that.
Well, what you just said, Mike, you said alignment. And how many of us, right? And we're good-willed people, and we have the system at work dialed into a T. And then, we're just kind of coming home and just, oh my goodness, I gave it all at work. And now it's just kind of whatever happens at home. And, we're not bad people, but that's a mentality that's affected families greatly. One of the things I love about you, Mike, a perfect example, right? You lead so well here at Love Church. I mean, I couldn't thank God more for you. But what I love more about you is when you're at home and you're around the table with your family, and what have you been asking lately? You've been asking your kids. Tell me what you've been doing with them.
Yeah, so, I just believe, one of the things that I'm constantly, at least in this season, asking the question is how do I engage my children's hearts?
That's it.
Like, how do I connect with their hearts? And here's what I know. Anybody that has kids 7 and under, it's hard to get them focused. But around the dinner table, I've got a captive audience. And so one of the things that we've implemented, and I learned this from a good friend named Aaron, is these 4 questions is what we ask is, what's your high from the day? What's your low from the day? It's okay. There's struggles in a day. What's one kind thing that you did today? And what's one thing that you're grateful for? And the beauty, man, is this has just become a launching pad for conversation. You know, it's been a launching pad for teaching moments. And so that's a rhythm that we've implemented. That's a regular rhythm that, and again, we haven't always done that. And we may not always ask those 4 questions.
Each season you can evaluate.
That's it. That's what's working right now. And so we're going to execute that, and it's powerful.
It's powerful. The other thing that just came to mind, Mike, was, you know, Jordan and Lauren Burrows, you know, family to us. You know, they moved away to Philadelphia, and we miss them so dearly. It's crazy. We just saw some pictures. My family they're on social media, and they were showing me these pics. And I was just like almost in tears because I just love the family. But it was so cool. The thing that blessed me, maybe the biggest, probably my best Christmas present this year, is Lauren sent a video of the kids and Jordan and the whole family going through the Orange Bible. And this was the first year, every night, they took all their kids through the Orange Bible. This is the first year they accomplished it. And I just, you know, both of them, you know, weren't necessarily raised in the Word, Jordan and Lauren, and yet here they are with their kids, sowing seeds of the Word of God into their lives. And they're a different family. I mean, they're amazing people. They're beautiful. They're talented. But man, to get their children grounded on the Word of God, what is that? It's a daily rhythm.
Daily rhythm.
It's a consistency. It's a system. It might sound religious. It might sound constrictive, but I guarantee you there's going to be fruit from that.
Absolutely. And speaking of that rhythm, I mean, when we're talking about the idea of rhythm, I know for you, you would go to bat to say that is the rhythm. Like, we've built the entire church around this idea of developing self-feeders. Can you talk about, because people are going to listen to this episode and they're going to be thinking about their rhythms.
Yep.
Can you talk about the power of establishing a rhythm in the Word of God every single day, and the fruit that you've experienced, not only in your personal life, but as a family and as a leader?
And beyond, yeah. I mean, I look at you, I look at your family, our pastoral team, so many others. I was actually just talking with a couple, old school Calvary Chapel couple. We got to pray for them after church this past Sunday, and going through some health challenges and whatnot. The man was, he's the one that designed the Bible college that we went to. And we were in tears. Denise and I were in tears because, you know, Pastor Chuck, who started the very first Calvary Chapel, it was all about helping his people from Genesis to Revelation read the Bible, get to know God one day at a time. That's what it was all about. And that's really the Calvary Chapel movement. And then now, you know, Chuck's in heaven, and here we are on a Bible and 4-year plan. And that's the basics. What I love about it, there's a million things. And that's the number one, if you're looking at putting like building blocks into your life, or you're putting rocks into your schedule, it's the number one rock, because everything else comes from that, right? What I love about it last year, Genesis through, what did we end with? With Nehemiah, I think.
Nehemiah.
Was it Nehemiah?
Yeah, it was Nehemiah.
Or Esther, yeah. So basically you have the first 5 books of the Bible and then the historical books last year.
Yep.
And then this year, Mike, we start off with Job. The poetry and wisdom books, and then the prophets. And I'm just thinking, like, I would never choose just to go, I'm just going to go read Job. No, dude, I'm going to read like something uplifting or this or that. But you know how it's been so, even just in the handful of days to start this year, Mike, it's forced me to ask questions about human suffering that I'm not going to probably do.
Wow.
But you talk about maturity, and you talk about real life questions people are asking. I had a guy that was a firefighter for 22 years come up to me yesterday. He said, man, thanks so much for teaching that. I know that probably been tough on New Year's Day to talk about Job. He's like, but you know what? I wish I would have had that teaching 22 years ago.
Unbelievable.
You know how many times I've showed up to a scene and there's a teenager hanging from a rope that just took his life, and I have to go talk to the parents and hug the parents? He said, man, I wish I would have had that teaching that many years ago. And I think about that and I'm like, the Bible doesn't allow you to skirt some of these type of topics.
Yeah, real life.
It's Genesis to Revelation, real life, the ups and downs, God's wisdom. Like it's the one thing we need in life. And we have the privilege of helping people walk through that.
That's so good.
And so, yeah, I mean, you know me, dude, I could go on, but the daily self-feeding, the discussing it in small groups, the preaching from that weekly reading on Sundays, you know, again, it's a system. And it's not a religious system. It's a relationship system.
Come on.
It's an opportunity to grow every day. Pastor Steve Peterson told us a million times, Mike, what did he say? There's always more with the Lord.
That's it.
I love it. It's one day at a time. It's growing every day.
That's so good. And, you know, I want to kind of transition the conversation to really like a motivation because,
Okay.
you talk a lot about stewardship and being a good steward, you know, maximizing,
Yes,
the
that's a big
moment,
one.
maximizing the season, maximizing our lives. And I think as people are thinking about establishing rhythms, I would love to just hear your perspective on this idea of motivation. Like what is driving the rhythms that we set, the goals that we set, and how do we continue to even look at that? Because I think that, I guess right now I feel this compassion in my heart for the listener that has maybe, if they were really honest with themselves, the motivation and the thing that's been driving some of the goals that they have set the last few years, which they came up short on, has maybe not been in alignment with what God has for them.
Yeah.
And now here they find themselves in year 3 going around the mountain again, and they maybe feel shame or guilt that they fell short, but it's because it wasn't coming from a genuine place of motivation. And so can you just speak about how important it is that as we set new rhythms, that we're really answering this question, God, what are you inviting me into?
Well, you hit it. The number one question that we got trained in by Pastor Steve that I implement in every area of our life, Lord, what are you inviting us into in this season? It's such a powerful word because why? God created me. He gifted me. He called me. He gave me a game plan to fulfill and to enjoy the journey while we're doing it. So it's absolutely crucial to pray and to listen and to hear and then to obey that answer. It's not, it's not world. What are you wanting me to do to strive to gain identity or notoriety or money or fame or whatever? There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff, but if that is my motivation, I'm going to come up short in my soul every single time.
Yep.
I'm created for purpose. I'm created for calling. I'm created for intimacy with God. That's why I was created, for fellowship with God, to bless him, to glorify him. So if I'm praying from that direction and then asking God to give me wisdom and grace to obey whatever he's inviting me into, us into in this season, not only am I alive and I feel purposeful, but I'm enjoying the journey. It might be a stretch goal. It might be way more than I could ever imagine. But guess what? If he calls me to it, he's going to give me the grace to operate in it and find fulfillment in it. But there's so many of us, I think, one way or the other. There's a lot of people. I just was talking to a friend recently, and this hit me because this was true in my life for quite some time. I wouldn't set big goals because I was fearful.
Wow.
And I would rather set smaller goals because then I wouldn't let someone else down.
Wow.
Or I was too worried about what others would think. And so I wouldn't, if I really felt God calling me to something, I would back down from it because I was too scared.
Wow.
But, so that's one side. But then on the other side, it's like I'm trying to strive so much financially or from a job perspective or athletically or whatever. I'm trying to strive so much, but God really didn't invite me into it. I have a deficit and I have a lack of identity. I'm trying to prove something to someone. So now it's just striving. I'm not even enjoying the journey. And I think, again, that's kind of the tension, Mike. Lord, what are you inviting us into? Let's you hit it, maximize the stewardship that he by his grace has given me. And now how can I operate in that, enjoy it, do it together? I love walking with you. You know, we meet darn near every week talking about some of these things that God's inviting us into. We get to pray for each other when we're off. When I get complacent, I get lackadaisical, I get disconnected. You know, I have people around me that can, you know, lovingly call me out and challenge me and be like, hey, bro, like, you know, or I'll just be authentic with you. I mean, hey, man, I'm struggling right now. Can you pray for me?
For real.
You know, and we get back on track and keep on rolling.
It reminds me of, I think you've heard me share this quote because I overshare this quote, but it's the atmosphere you permit decides the product you produce. I think this year, as you're thinking about what sort of rhythms and goals to set, make sure you're inviting some people on the journey. There's no way that we would continue to move forward without one another. I mean, certainly it's got to be Jesus first.
That's right.
But we are better together.
Yep.
And I think, especially with what you just said, I think a filter that I would love to share that I recently heard that I thought was really powerful for considering new rhythms is, are we allowing conviction and calling to drive that rhythm, or convenience and comfort? And you and I, we talk about this often, but Craig will say you can have comfort or growth, but you can't have both.
Yeah.
And sometimes the invitation or the step or the new rhythm is actually a step that's going to be uncomfortable, right? It's going to be a sacrifice. So why do I bring that to the surface? Because we need each other.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to show up to the CrossFit gym on Wednesdays by myself, but because our whole squad does it, I actually find joy in it. There's a sense of purpose. There's a sense of fulfillment that comes at, you know, going on the journey with others. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I just feel like, you know, our listeners, man, get some people around you this year that can help you go the distance.
Yeah, maybe that's how we can land this episode. There's so much to this, but I was just thinking that's a perfect, very simple and practical example. Lord, what are you inviting us into in this season? And you and I and Denise and others, we prayed about our team. How do we maintain, as the church continues to grow, how do we maintain this family feel? Right? We used to have everybody come over to the house for dinner on Sunday nights. And, you know, I mean, you just couldn't fit everybody anymore. And one of the things is we wanted to work out together. That was one of our convictions. We got a phenomenal coach in Kyle. I mean, Kyle Casper, are you kidding me? I mean, he is a dynamite coach. And so I would say that, hey, hire a coach, you know, like if you need some help with some goals and some being consistent and, you know, on some of these things that you set out to do, hire a coach. He's been great. And to your point, do it together. You know, you got a coach, you got a community, and that accountability, you're right. That just happened yesterday. You know, we're fasting and praying for 21 days, and all right, now go work out. And I'm lightheaded and all that stuff. But it was like, you know what though? I loved it. But at the end of the time, you know, as tough as it was great because I'm doing it together. There's something as far as little disciplines physically that we accomplished. We got to sweat together, pray together, and you know that's one of many here in 2023. That will set us up for success by the end of the year.
So good, man. Thanks for unleashing all the wisdom and just what God has graced you with over the years. I think you finished it perfect there. Find a coach and find a community.
That's it, baby. Come on.
And as you go through this next year, we're just going to be praying, man, that you leave nothing on the table, that you continue to pour it out, lean in, and we're just grateful to be on this journey with you guys. Hey, we do want to say this before we finish this conversation. If you were encouraged by this, we would just say, hey, subscribe to this podcast. Yep. We're going to be releasing more content. Share this with a friend. Maybe there's somebody that comes to mind right now that you're like, you know what? We were just having this conversation at the office, or we were just having this conversation at the gym. Man, just copy the link, send it to them. We just want to continue to build, speaking of community, and we're in your corner, and we just believe the best is yet to come, so keep leaning in. We'll see you next time. What's up, Love Leadership fam? Man, we know that if you're tuning in, you love to lead, and we hope that this episode brought you value. We're going to be dropping a new episode the third Thursday of every month, so subscribe, like. Also, there's more Love Leadership content for you on our channel. Go check it out right now. We can't wait to see you next month.